Hello guys, today we're going to be looking at these two amazing cars here. If you're on the market for a 200 grand electric vehicle, these are probably some of the best choices on the market today. While these cars look and obviously feel a lot different, they're actually a lot more similar than people realize. So today we're going to go through a review. I'm going to show you the highlights of each car, and then hopefully can help you make a better decision of which car is right for you. So starting off, we have a 2021 Porsche Taycan Turbo. So I've had this car for a little over 3 years, and it's been one of the best cars I've ever owned. It was my first electric vehicle. This is the brand new Mercedes G580, otherwise known as the electric G-Wagon. For a little while, Mercedes was going to call it the EQG, but Mercedes actually changed their whole structure of how they're going to sell electric vehicles, and they're no longer going to have its own EQ line. Instead, the EQ models are going to live within the existing product line. So this is a G580 that lives within the G-Class product line. So you have right now the G550 below it, which was just switched to a 6-cylinder engine. And then you of course have the AMG G63 that lives above this vehicle, and this electric G580 slots in between them. For the Porsche in their lineup at the time in 2021, there was a Turbo S that lived above this turbo model. Now they have the Turbo GT that's one notch above it. But in terms of pricing and in terms of what you get, these cars are actually very similar. So let's take a deeper dive and look at the actual specifications on each one of these. We'll start off with the Porsche Taycan. Let's look at the specs of this specific Porsche Taycan. I custom spec'd this out back in 2021. Let's bring you guys closer. We can look at the specs. So for the options, we went with the Mamba Green Metallic, which is an amazing color that they actually don't make anymore. So it's become even more unique. Aside from that, there's a couple gold accents and small touches like that. The center caps in color I did, but aside from that, the big ticket items were the performance package, which gives you the sports chrono, Porsche electric sport sound, dynamic chassis control, and rear axle steering, and of course the premium package, which I would highly recommend for anyone building any Porsche. It's usually the best value you're going to get, which included a couple of things, but the bigger ticket items was the surround view camera, storage package. It comes with the panoramic glass roof, which we could see here, lane change assist, seat ventilation, thermal noise insulated glass, and ionizer. So we came in here at a total price of $163,970, which includes the delivery fee of $1,350. Today, however, they've increased the prices for all the Porsche Taycan. So in today's prices, if you wanted to get a 2025 Taycan Turbo with similar options, you'd probably come in at about, I would say, 185, maybe 180 to 185, which is, as you guys will see, very similar to the G580. So if we look inside, I went with the black interior here. I think if I were to customize a Porsche again, I'd probably do something a little bit more interesting. One of my favorite interiors on a Porsche, let's go circle around. One of my favorite interiors on a Porsche Taycan is actually, well, any Porsche is their red interior. However, with the bright green, felt a little bit risky to also throw in a bright interior. So you have the black seats here. What I did do is the Neodyme accents, which you could see around the steering wheel here and a lot of other places throughout the car, like the cup holders. And of course, it comes with the panoramic sunroof, which you could see here from the outside. See if I can get you guys a good view from the inside. There it is. Looks phenomenal, and it makes the car feel very airy, especially for the passenger seating. For this specific build, when I built it in 2021, you could only have 2 seats in the back. Now you could pay extra to have a 3rd seat, but to be honest, I think this is really a 4-seat car, and adding a seat over here where the cup holder is probably makes it a little bit tight in the back. Next up, we have the G-Wagon, the G580, which is so tall I had to zoom out the camera a little bit just to get the car into frame. So for the G580, taking a look at the build here, we landed here at 185, which is, like I was saying, very similar to a Taycan Turbo if you were to price one out today. There weren't a lot of options, so this is the first edition. So you're really the only choice they really gave you is at least when I was ordering it, is the outside color. which, as you could see, I went with the manufacturer South Sea Blue Magno, which is a really nice matte color on it. Aside from that, I think there was 4 other colors, white, silvers, and black. Interior, this is a mix of the black and silver. There were no choices for it. This is the only interior the first edition comes with. And then it comes with the first edition package, which of course came with a lot of other features that are now going to be standalone once this is no longer a first edition. So take a look at some of the features that came with the first edition. So you have this. Obviously, the grab handle is on all G-Class models, but here specifically it says Edition 1. So this carbon fiber with a blue weave inside is actually unique for the first edition. It also comes with a blue stitching. So all of these blues are regardless of the outside color. So even if you had the white or the gray or the black, you still wind up with the blue accents. I like it the most, of course, on the blue exterior. Kind of brings it all together, but they're still, regardless of the color, the nice accents. You have the blue stitching, carbon fiber with a blue weave throughout the car. So the seats are nice contrasting black and silver with the blue weave here as well. You have the nice upgraded 3D sound speakers, heated ventilated seats, of course. And overall, very good first edition package, let's say. They really gave you all the probably most popular features in this. Comparing the cars, obviously the first thing you're going to notice is the size difference. So the Taycan is actually longer than the G-Wagon. That's probably the only dimension that it's bigger in. So it is a much longer car, even though it's not huge on the inside. It is a pretty long car. The G-Wagon, of course, is bigger in almost every other dimension. It is extremely, extremely tall, as you could see, but you could see a much shorter car. It is actually almost 80 inches tall, which means that if you have standard doors like I have here, the actual cutout of the doors is 80 inches. So the cutout at the top is 80 inches. You could see a little trim goes down even lower here. So when I pull the car in, I actually touch this trim because I believe the actual size of the car is right under 79 inches in height. Aside from that, the interior space, let's take a look. So obviously, being a taller car, it's much taller here inside, which makes it feel a lot airier. Much taller car, you have to step in to get in there. Step here is obviously very useful. In terms of space, otherwise they're probably very similar. I would say the G-Wagon's a little bit bigger in the rear occupant space in terms of knee room, headroom, things like that. But they're surprisingly very similar, and both can be configured as 5-passenger cars, since on the Taycan you could add a seat in the middle now. So then in that regard, they're surprisingly very similar. Obviously, the big difference between these two cars got to be performance. So the Porsche Taycan Turbo here is, and if you're looking for a performance car, the 0-60, I believe, was 3 seconds on it. So it is an extremely, extremely fast car. Horsepower and torque-wise, they're actually pretty similar, but obviously the G-Wagon being so much heavier makes it a lot slower. So if we take a look here, it's actually 579 horsepower, but 859 pound-feet of torque. So it has a lot more torque than the Taycan, a little bit less horsepower. 0-60 on this car, I believe Mercedes quotes 4.6, 4.5. Having driven it a couple days now, I think it's actually a little bit conservative. It's probably in the lower 4s. And figures like going from 20 to 60, from 30 to 60, are obviously going to be very strong given that it's an electric car without gears to shift and without a transmission. Some other neat things to point out trunk-wise, I actually like the trunk on the G-Wagon more. So it's not a huge trunk, but you have a lot of vertical space, which is very helpful. On the Taycan, if we take a look, the biggest struggle I had owning the Taycan for 3.5 years is the trunk. Even then goes somewhat deep. It's actually not that high, not that tall here. So I even have a suitcase that was a very tight fit in there. You have this nice compartment here, which I only discovered after 2 years of ownership. You have a nice little hook over here, but the trunk itself obviously doesn't have a lot of height. Here, it's obviously a lot higher, which makes it a lot more convenient for storing larger items. Will obviously fit a lot more suitcases. What's interesting though is on the Taycan, although I've haven't used it too much. You have the storage here in the front as well. This is the classic Porsche frunk, as they call it, front trunk, which actually fits a carry-on suitcase pretty well. The reason I really stayed away from using it is there's a lot of horror stories, especially from people with a Porsche 911, that put something here that's a little bit too tall, and then they close it, and it actually bends the hood because it's really very thin aluminum here. I was actually expecting something similar on the G-Wagon, since all electric cars pretty much, not having an engine, have a spot over there, but I could even figure out how to open it. There it goes. Surprisingly, Mercedes did not provide any storage here. So there's absolutely no space to use for anything. They have this engine cover, even though there's really no engine here. There's motors on each wheel. So there's actually 4 motors in this car, 1 on each wheel. But even though you would think you'd have some storage space here, you actually do not. Anything with a G-Wagon, you really got to slam it to close things. From a driving experience, they actually are both surprisingly very similar. Well, as similar as they could be, given that this car is a couple inches from the ground, and here you sit a couple feet from the ground. But being electric cars, they actually felt pretty similar in terms of instant torque, the acceleration, and things like that. And we'll do a quick drive with both of them for you guys. But surprisingly, very different, but at the same time very similar. If you're going to a racetrack, or if you really enjoy the sporty, aggressive driving, the tight turns, the windy roads where the rear wheel steering here will help tremendously, I think the Taycan's a car for you. I think if you're looking for a more luxurious drive, if you're not really trying to max out the 0-60 and using launch control and things like that, I actually prefer the drive of the G-Wagon, and I'm not even an SUV person. This will be the first SUV that will be my daily driver. So I've been pleasantly surprised with this car. Oh, and of course the second part of the trunk I forgot to show you guys is this little thing here. So it's meant to store the charger. So instead of the wheel or the spare tire that you would get on a regular G-Wagon, actually this is meant for to have the backup charger here. I think starting next year you're going to be able to option the wheel if you do want the wheel. Hop inside and take a look at how they feel and look inside. So let's do the Taycan first. You can see inside. You can see the panoramic roof in the back. You can see the back seats. It feels a little bit tighter, obviously, and smaller than the G-Wagon. I don't know if it is in reality or just the feel of being closer to the ground and having the more sporty feel. The back seats, surprisingly, my kids have said that these seats were softer. These again are the 18-way. These seats were softer than what was in the G-Wagon. Maybe the G-Wagon's just not broken in yet. A little bit of a tight fit here. You have some space. I think the panoramic roof is pretty much a must-have on this car. It really makes it feel a lot more open. Obviously, a little to the ground, need to take a little step to get out. So the new Porsche Taycans actually have a new air suspension option. I believe it's something like $7,000 that raises the car as you get up. If you have the older one, unfortunately, you still have to make your way out of the lower car. One other thing, and then we're going to look at the G-Wagon that I really liked on the Porsche Taycan is the chargers. You can see the chargers here, the charging ports, actually on both sides. This is something that's been super, super convenient, both charging at home, and if you're ever pulling up to a charging station, not having to reverse your car and try to squeeze in somewhere. On the G-Wagon here, the G580, they put the charging port right over here, just like they would on the regular G-Wagon, where they have the gas cap to fill up with gasoline. So it's only on one side here, which makes it a little tricky in some cases. First, I gotta open the car. So this comes with something that Mercedes calls a G-roar. And as soon as you open the car, it starts making an outside noise. I don't know if you could hear it very well. I think it comes from right over here. You have some ambient noise as you get in. Obviously a whole different experience than getting into a Taycan. Here, instead of sitting down to get in, you actually have to take a step up. It'd be nice if they had grab handles here to help people get up. True G-Wagon fashion, I didn't close the door enough. You have to really slam these things. You don't have the panoramic roof here. You do have this smaller sunroof. You actually have a speaker right here by the sunroof. Let's do a quick POV driving experience for you guys. So let's start this thing up. So you have these paddle shifters here that you do not have on the Taycan. As opposed to switching gears, you switch recuperation modes with this. Still pretty quiet drive. Those are doors locking, very solid sounding doors. In terms of acceleration, it's still an EV, so it's still instant torque, instant response. You do get a very quick. That was just me touching the pedal a little bit. Very quick acceleration. Just have this blue stitching throughout the steering wheel, which is also a nice touch. I believe it's only on the first edition. Definitely feels like I'm driving a tank a little bit, maybe because I'm not really an SUV person, but at the same time, it does feel fairly sporty. Back up here, backup camera is surprisingly nicer than the Taycan one. You have different views you could see. Won't do it in this video, but you also have the G-turn that Mercedes has in this car, so where it spins 360. And then you have the low range, you have the off-road cockpit, which actually gives you a camera under the car. Features probably I won't be using, but the G-turn I'll definitely try out in another video. So we're gonna do the same exercise now on the Taycan. Give you a quick drive. Start it up. So with the Taycan, you have this little knob here, which you could select drive mode. So you have range, normal, sport, sport plus, and individual. On the G-Wagon, I didn't really show you, but there were two modes. There's individual, comfort, and sport. In the Sport Plus here, it actually lowers the car. You could see it lowering over there, and that was my favorite mode to drive it in. So let's put it in normal just so I can make it down the driveway. Of course, you're a lot lower to the ground, so I have this little bump coming into my driveway, which in sports mode would not be good. Pressing on the pedal, it's obviously a lot quicker than the G-Wagon. Even hit my head a little bit on the seat pressing that right now, and it wasn't launch control, it was in Sports Plus mode. Here I could put it in Sports Plus mode. So in Sports Plus mode, it activates a sound, which is a little bit different from the G-Roar in the Mercedes. This feels a little bit more like a spaceship in terms of the sound. Look at that, turn around back. You could hear it, almost feels like you're in a spaceship flying off. Definitely accelerated faster, harder, has less torque than the G580, but of course it's also a lot lighter, and Porsche really optimized it with it has 2 gears specifically to help with the 0-60. Of course, there's also launch control, which I've never used on this car. Of course, now we have to slowly, if you could see the curve, I have a little bit of a curve pulling into my house. I have it actually programmed to lift the car. You could see it's lifting the car in certain GPS points, including this one, so I don't scratch the bottom of it. Hopefully that review and test drive was helpful for you guys. If you're in the market for an electric vehicle and looking to spend in the price range of these two cars, which is about $185 for I would say for both of them in today's prices in today's market, I think these are literally the 2 best electric vehicles you could buy on the market. So I would highly recommend you go and test drive both of them. They're, I think, very different cars, but very similar cars. Big question is, if you have $185,000 and you want to buy an electric vehicle, which car would you get? Porsche Taycan or the G580?